My topic that I chose is on list comprehensions in Python. List comprehensions were introduced in Python 2.0. They're syntactic sugar to create lists of elements in a more succinct way than using for loops. So the idea behind list comprehensions stems from math. Mathematicians describe sets or lists using brackets or braces. The value of the expression is followed by the range of the expression variable. In this case, x squared is the output expression that each element in 0 through 9 will take on. So it's like a parameter to that expression. There are a couple other standard notations. So these same sets or lists can be described in Python in this way. The first example is pretty similar to the math version. We just have the value that will be used for each element in the range from 0 through 10. So the output expression in this case would be x squared. Actually, as a side note, it's similar to the find all function in Prolog, how you have the output expression and the rules to create the expression for each element. The value first structure can also be compared to select statements in SQL, where you select something from some structure or some database table. So the notation for a list comprehension is essentially a one-line for loop with the inner part of the for loop pulled to the beginning. So here's an example of transforming a four-line loop to a one-line list comprehension. As you can see, the innermost part is brought out to the beginning the same way that it would be done in a math expression. Also, you can see the use of conditionals following the for expression. There can be any number of conditionals, so you could have long if statements at the end. So many people have used maps before, particularly those who've coded a lot in functional languages. So they tend to like maps better than list comprehensions. However, in Python, the syntax of maps using lambda functions, I think makes it less readable than using a list comprehension. So here's an example. So list comprehensions read well. Like I've said, it's basically just an inline for loop. And that makes it easy to read, although many people might disagree with that. Also, you can do things with map and filter that you're not able to do with list comprehensions, since they only support for and if conditionals. If the construction rule is too complicated to be expressed with these, or if the rule can be changed at runtime, then it's better to use map or filter, or use a combination of list comprehensions and maps. So another cool thing about list comprehensions is nesting. They make it, so comprehensions make this much easier than it would be if you have to use a map. You can just string together an arbitrary number of for loop and if expressions. So in this case, we have a two deep for loop just by stringing together. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. Yeah, not much there. So here's a comparison of a regular procedural for loop sequence to find prime numbers between 0 and 50. The question of readability often has to do with how much is going on per line, and list comprehensions may fail this test because there's a lot going on each line here, although it does reduce the amount of lines by down to 25% of what it would be if you used for loops. In Python, you have three basic multi-element structures: lists, sets, and dictionaries. Python provides comprehensions for each of these. They keep the same basic notation, just using braces instead of square brackets. Of course, with the dictionary comprehension, you have to specify the key and value pair as the output expression, because that's what you're creating. So there are many use cases for comprehensions, but they all have to do with the creation of new structures, like when you're going to set a variable to a list. They're useful for quick list creation where the elements are related, or when flattening deep lists into another list or something similar. But whenever a comprehension is used for side effects, it's often frowned upon. For instance, the comprehension at the bottom prints the numbers from 1 to 10. This can be used without setting it to a variable. You can just have it in a line by itself because it doesn't even return a value. It just print each value. So that's generally not what you want to do according to the general consensus of the Python community. So list comprehensions are cool and can be very useful when used properly, but they can also cause code to become unreadable. The trade-offs are similar to the trade-offs you would have when using maps and filters versus procedural code. Yeah, so that's it. There's really nothing complicated about them at all. They just kind of require a mind shift at first, but they can really result in some pretty succinct and clear code.